Hey everyone, Josh Ring here, and welcome back to my little series here on forScore, where I'm diving deep into various features of forScore and reading music from your iPad. Today we're just going to talk about a day in the life as a working musician using forScore. What are some of the various features and settings that I use to make the most of my workflow so I can make the most of my time? So we're going to talk about things like the metronome and the piano within the app, or the tuner. We're also going to talk about pairing audio and different display modes that we can use. And my personal favorite are gestures, which just maximize your workflow potential in forScore. Now, we've already discussed annotation mode in depth, and we've talked about different ways to say organize with set lists and folders and various things. So those videos will be in the link below, so you can check out those if you haven't already. And before we begin, I have my free gift to you. This is my music theory survival guide. It has a lot of great features within it to help you create better music, believe in yourself, and share your gifts with others. So let's dive in. All right, first I wanted to talk about display mode, which is the ability to determine if you're going to have these half pages at a time when you're in landscape mode like this, or you could have 2 pages up at a time like this. Or if you're in portrait mode, however, instead of just a single page turn at a time, you have the option to do half page turns. And you can even set where do you want this half page turn to occur. And each time you could have it be set at different locations, which is quite helpful, especially if you are a solo instrumentalist and you have rests before your next page turn. So to get to display mode and change how many pages are being displayed, you can do one of 2 things. First, if you just tap anywhere and you bring up the toolbar at the top, kind of in the top left, there's this gear kind of by my name where it says Blessed Assurance, the title of the piece. So if you tap that gear, you'll open this up, and under options on the left, you have the options for what kind of page, 1 page or 2 pages. Or another way, no matter what you're doing, you can always double tap and you bring up the same thing. How many pages do you want displayed? Another helpful tool is the metronome. So on the top right is our little metronome icon next to the toolbox. And when we open this up, we can slide up and down for what we want the metronome to be set at. We could tap our metronome and it'll tell us what we're tapping. We can even change where do we want the accents to be. Are we in 3/4 or 4/4? So I might set it to like this, and then we could have it at the bottom. We can select audible. So there's audible. We could have visible, where on the border of the score, it clicks out the metronome for us, or we could do both even. And the great thing about this, if we go to another song, it'll remember the settings we have for the next song. And when we go back to that song, it'll remember what we had set. So it remembers each metronome setting for each song. Also in the metronome pane at the top, we now have pitch. So we could select a certain pitch. We can rotate our pitch wheel so we can have different things. So we can have a pitch for C. If we want at the top right, we can change the octave. So we can have higher or lower. So also very helpful. And then right next to that, we also have tuners. So if we wanted to tune something, we have the tuner right here. We don't need to leave our app and maybe go to a free tuner you might have downloaded on your phone that might have a bunch of ads. Here we have the tuner right here for us. But most often I use the metronome here. Another great device is the piano. So if you go into the toolbox, scroll all the way down under more, the first thing under more is the piano. So now you have a piano here that you can use, and you can slide it up or down depending on how big you might want it. The little infinity icon says, is there a pedal being held down or not? Usually I just leave that off. We could slide it up or down depending on what octave we might want it to be in. The gear has a few settings. Do we want the note name labels? I think that's actually pretty helpful for what octave you might be playing in. If you want to zoom in or out, you could do that as well. Personally, I like it zoomed in because my fingers are so clunky. And then the X just gets rid of it for us. So let's say we have an audio that we wanted to import into forScore. So here I have my audio example. So if I open that up, mine says open in forScore because I do this often, but if it doesn't, the share icon, you could open that up and you can scroll through your apps till you find forScore. So then you tap on forScore, it opens that back up. And now the question is, how do we get that audio to match to a certain score? So if you open up the properties pane, on the left in the middle is audio. So if you tap on audio, there's nothing there yet. So if you tap on the plus symbols, the plus symbol by itself will open up your library from Apple Music. But the plus symbol with a piece of paper will have all of the audio files that are in forScore for you. So if it's not there, you can tap on this left icon with the arrow so you can have tracks, or maybe you've made your own recording, and then you can add it to there. So we're going to add our little audio example that we have. And if we have multiple audio files, we can choose which one's going to be on top. So once I exit out of here, now I have my audio example down at the bottom. And if I hit play, it'll play it for us. Very exciting, right? So we have a few great features at our disposal. First, if we click on the settings, this little gear knob, we can change quite a few things. So maybe we want to play it at half tempo. Maybe this is a song we're working on learning, so we want to learn it a little slower. So we would get this. And it does a decent job. We could also play at 75% speed. So we could change the speed from there. We could also make it faster if we wanted to for some reason. The semitones is what you might do, like think of half steps. So if you wanted to change it up, right now it's in E. So if I wanted to go to F, F sharp, or even G. All right, so you could change the key based on there. Cents is if it's out of tune, it just changes it by a little bit. So 100 cents equals 1 semitone or 1 half step. Other settings, this lock feature, if the audio is playing, it won't go, you won't be able to go to the next score. So usually I just leave that unlocked myself. This little arrow thing is for replay, that it'll memorize where you turn the page while the audio is playing. That way it'll just turn the page for you automatically. And then this loop button allows you to create a little tiny loop. So maybe you just want to work on, say, the first few seconds here. And it'll go back to the beginning. So if you want to set that loop, you have the 3 dots in the bottom there. So you can change what you want to do from there. You can change the loop. It has a little scrub so you can kind of get close to, oh, it's not going to be at the next waveform. So you can play and pause from there as you need to. So this is helpful if you ever have like a piano accompaniment you want to practice along to as a solo instrumentalist or vocalist. You're going to have the piano accompaniment playing while you play along with it. Maybe you have a complete recording you're going to reference while you're working, or maybe your teacher has made an audio file of the diction for a certain song so you can practice how to pronounce certain words. Or maybe you're going to record something yourself so you can play it back for your teacher once you get to lessons. So let me show you how to make a recording. If you go to the top right in the toolbox, scroll down to the record, which is under the piano there. So if you tap on record, you can make a short little recording. So here we go. We'll go test, test, 1, 2. Tap it again, and now we can name the file. So I'll just name it test for now. And then if I tap on the 3 little lines, I can see the test. And this is a place, if I ever wanted to get rid of it or share it, this is a place I can do that. So I'll just hit done for now. And I'll exit out of that. So now when I have my little audio file at the bottom, when I have my audio example, now if I hit on the left, I have these arrows now that I can swipe back and forth, or hit the arrows, and I can go to my little audio recording that I made versus the audio file that I had downloaded. All right, so here we have this test, and we can play it back. We'll go test, test, 1, 2. Right, very exciting. And again, if you wanted to get this out of the way, you can just tap in the middle and scroll it down so it's a little out of the way. But if you are going to start working and you don't need the audio files, just tap somewhere in the middle. It'll get rid of all the toolboxes so you're ready to go with no distraction. All right, next we have buttons, which are a great way to create actions when you hit a button. So let's say I want to have a button here, and then on the right, I have my set of actions. So maybe I'm going to have the metronome start. Or maybe it's I'm going to change what that metronome is, or I'm going to revert it back to what it initially was. Another great thing is to have it play an audio file for you. So you have a whole bunch of actions to choose from for what it's going to do for you. And if you even tap on the color icon, you can even change what color your button is going to be. So there's 2 ways to add buttons. If you go into the toolbox, third thing down is buttons. That'll add a button for you. Another way is when you're in landscape mode like this, if you, on each side of the title, you have these options for what you want these pull-down menus to be shortcuts for. So I like to have one of mine set to buttons. Personally, I have the other one set to share, because that way it's easy to get to the things that you do the most. If you ever want to get rid of a button, go into annotation mode, and then when you go to your eraser, you have the option to get rid of it. So let's say you would like to have a blank score. So a way to do that is you go into the toolbox, scroll Down under add scores is this template. So if you tap on that, you have some options. Is it just a blank page, just blank staff, or maybe you have some things grouped together, a few bars or grand staff. So you can decide, is it going to be 1 page long, 2 pages long, and then when you hit save, you can name it. So I'm just going to do a template for now. And then once you've done that, you now have this score for you that's blank, ready to go. This is great for composing or arranging, or maybe some homework assignments you might have. Another great tool is what's known as cues. If you go into your toolbox, scroll down quite a ways, towards the bottom is this cue. Again, tap and hold. This will bring up Learn More, which is actually a great place to learn about it, because I personally don't use this a lot, but it's a great feature that if you want to follow another person's forScore page turns. So say you're in an orchestra, you're in the violin section, you could have the lead violin player, the concertmaster, would turn the pages, they'd be the leader, and then you could set to be the follower. So you could just not have to worry about page turns. They would kind of take care of it for you, and you could rely on them. All right, and last, let's talk about some settings you want to make sure you have set. So go into your toolbox all the way at the bottom, click on settings, and again, you can always click on learn more, just like all of these. So if you go into settings, the first one is probably the most important setting to have. Make sure auto lock here at the top is turned off, right? Students often think, oh, auto, let's have something that happen automatically for me, but really want to make sure this is off. Auto lock is the ability for the iPad to just turn dark and automatically lock itself, right? After you've kind of let it sit for a long time, which is a problem as a musician. If your iPad just sitting there for a long time, you haven't turned the page, but you're still in the middle of your performance, you don't want it to be going dark. So please, please, please make sure auto lock is turned off. Going down, we have now gestures, which I think is the true power of forScore. So gestures are kind of like shortcuts you might have on your computer, right? So walking through some of these, we have the swipe controls. Personally, I like to have that off. I just like to tap for things. When I page turn, I just tap it instead of swiping. That way I don't accidentally bump something and turn a page when I don't want to. I just tap. Double tap is what we were talking about earlier. This will bring up that display mode for you. Tap shortly with 2 fingers and let go quickly. For me, it's set to go into performance mode, which is a great feature to have. That way you don't accidentally bring up the toolbar at the top of the page. You just turn your page and that's it. The next one, we have 3 fingers as a single tap. Personally, I have this set to next score. And again, you have a lot of different options for what you might do. So go through and think about what kinds of things do you do often that you might want with these. So I have it set for 3 fingers. Single tap is the next score, and I'm going to jump down to tap and hold with 3 fingers. For me, is set to previous score. So this way, if I just tap with 3 fingers, it goes to the next score in my set list. If I tap and hold, it goes to the previous score, which is just a glorious thing to have set when you're in a rehearsal. Up next, we have tap and hold. I like it set to annotate, but there's a bunch of different things you could have it set to. And then tap and hold with 2 fingers. I like to turn the metronome on and off. So right now it's set to just the border, right? So it's tapping along the border versus if I tap and hold again, it'll turn the metronome off. When you're in annotation mode then, 2 fingers undo, 3 fingers does redo, which I think is great. And then shortcuts, this corner taps. Personally, I really like to have this turned off. Corner taps is when you are in a score and you want to bring up the toolbar. If you just tap in the top, it'll bring up whatever you tapped most recently, which is sometimes helpful, but not when you're trying to turn pages. So personally, I love to just turn that off. So go into gestures at the bottom. I just turn corner taps off. That way, if I accidentally tap on the top, it still turns the page. And some other good settings that I like to have for page turn transitions, you can have it curl, stack, or slide or off. Personally, I just have something. That way when you turn a page, you see that something is happening versus all of a sudden the music's different. And sometimes it doesn't change enough to realize you've turned the page or not. Personally, for 2 up, I like to have 2 pages up instead of just 1. So when you have 2 pages up and you turn the page, you could have it set to just advance 1 page or to advance 2 pages, which personally, I would rather have the 2 pages up. So I normally have it set to 2 pages. So it'll advance both pages. So then scrolling down under annotation, another great one to have is under Apple Pencil. Just this top one, automatically enter annotation mode when you're using the Apple Pencil. That way you don't have to go into annotation and then start writing. As soon as you start writing with the Apple Pencil, enter annotation mode. And finally, at the very bottom, this is a personal thing, but app icon under more. Personally, I didn't really like the design of version 14. And I rather liked the 11, so I have it set to version 11. But there's a bunch of different ones you could have it set to if you wanted to get those instead. All right, I hope that was helpful for you. Again, if you have any questions or comments about using your iPad as a music reading device, or if you have any questions on forScore, please do let me know in the comments below. And before you go, please don't forget my free gift to you. This is my music theory survival guide, joshring.com/free. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.